Good evening, and I welcome all of you to another session with Conversationists Talking Cures. Conversationists Talking Cures is an initiative, it's a mental health initiative. Priyanka, I think still people cannot hear or see us.
I am listening to
Priyanka,
the live. I'm listening to the live myself, ma'am. You can continue.
all right.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. So, Conversationist Talking Cures is a mental health initiative, and our aim is to remove the stigma is associated with mental health. And we want that it becomes an everyday affair. People can talk without any hesitation about their problems, anxiety, depression. We also want it to be a new way to converse, so that even it's not just when you feel overwhelmed that you feel you need to go to a counselor or a therapist, but you feel you can reach out to the therapist, and it should be as common as going to a physician. And today we have a very special session, and it is a 3-day session. And in the minds of men, conversations on and about men. And the idea for this started with a very disturbing event that recently took place, which is the boys' locker room controversy. And and what was really disturbing is that they were, of course, the girl was involved, and there were these boys, and they are all 15 to 15-year-olds. And it really was a very disturbing thing personally also, because despite so many programs, और हम इतने programs empowerment के कर रहे हैं, इतने सारे ads दे रहे हैं, and we are talking about toxic masculinity और सब कुछ के अलावा अगर अगर imagery is violent and अभी भी or this is the fantasy or this is what they are going to be discussing, then there is something amiss. And personally, I felt that we are missing out on something, and seeing men in cliche, in very very structured formats. And the aim for today is to start this conversation. The This is an attempt to start conversations about men, understand men beyond cliches, stereotypes, beyond judgments, biases. And 3 days we will be having discussions. Today we have with us two very esteemed people. We have Mr. Aditya Gautam and Mr. Venkatesh Mahadevan. Both of them are experts in their areas. And Mr. Venkatesh Mahadevan, I'm not going to give a formal interview, an introduction of him. I'm going to tell you what he's written as an informal introduction. And he says he has more than 30 years in the corporate in very senior positions as he's an IT leader, technology leader. And though he feels it is more than 50 years, and the recent lockdown has made him discover that he's a very good cook, though. And of course all the experiments, his family can only tell you if they were successful, but if they have all survived, they were successful attempts. And he says he's a writer also. And though he and the publishers refuse to publish a book, but so what, he's written a book, and that's the way we will say it. And he's also a motivational coach. And that's and he laughs when and I he's written this, that his family is thinking of writing a book on on the trials and tribulations of being with a motivational coach, living with a motivational coach. Venkatesh, thank you so much for agreeing for this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you.
Aditya Gautam, he is the author of Pornistan. The title of this whole thing, he's the author of the book called Pornistan. The book was mentioned in BBC, and it was it was a very very much acclaimed book. The reviews have been excellent. And Aditya, besides being an author, is a content writer with Google's, and he is also a stand-up comedian. He's worked a lot with our party also. Aditya, thank you so much for being here, and I
Thank
welcome
you.
all of you. I also want to tell you that it takes a lot of strength to talk about this, and thank you for sharing. It's a very sacred conversation it's going to be. And before I the first question I want to ask is a very obvious one, and that is, what does being a man mean? I mean, I would really like to ask you, Aditya, you want to go first? What does being a man mean?
I'll let Sir go first. He's been a man longer than me, so maybe he has a better answer.
Yeah. Uh, okay, so hi, Chavi. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Chavi, can you? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whichever part of the world you are in. Thank you, Chavi, for the lovely introduction. I promise you, my wife is not going to be very pleased about that. But hey, what? So what? I'm a man, right? So, like you
Yeah.
say, um, I yeah. Thank you for acknowledging, Aditya, that I'm older than you. So, not that it's not very apparent or obvious, but even then, uh, we Chavi, it's tough question. What is it like being a man? It's great. I mean, it's great. I think gender bias or gender has really never come into my mind. Would I be different if I was a woman or a girl or a different gender? I don't know. um, I don't think so, but I've always kind of been pretty much the way I've been right from beginning. So people who know me, even from my college and school days, they say you're the same. And while I've aged, and all of that has happened, I don't think too much has changed. But I guess, over a period of time, what I believe is, we men have had it pretty easy. uh, and this is not speaking about me in general, but in general, we kind of feel we are the entitled lot, a lot of times. And I think all of those have to go away for the society to be much better, and it is much better now. For a society to be much better, I guess effective change can only happen when we daily, consciously, irrespective of our age, experience, or gender, actually take a step forward and say, this patriarchy system that is, seeped into our behavior, that kind of comes subconsciously to us, has to go away. It has to be demolished. There is no entitlement. We are all equal. We have to look at what we have, make the most of what we have, whether it's an opportunity, whether it's a job, whether it's working at home. And trust you me, Chavi, one of the things that this lockdown taught me, and like it's taught a lot of people, um, two things. One is I am really a bad cook. While my so-called 10 odd fans on Instagram think that I am a great cook because of the pictures they see, they don't eat it, thank God. But it's tough running a house. It is absolutely tough running a house. It's tough being at home. So when you have a woman who's given up, and I'm taking the liberty of saying this about my wife, Anu, I've been married to her for again, seems like 100 years, but uh, she I think it's been easy on us, getting up, shaving, shitting, chatting, whatever, going to work, putting on clothes, getting to work, coming back in the evening, having a dinner, watching some television, and going to sleep, and behave most of the days as if nothing has happened while we have been away, and it's all been quiet and nice, is not, absolutely not the right thing. And that's one of the revelations for me, I guess, during these couple of months. Nature has taught me a lot. I am a huge nature fan, and this time I think it taught me facets that I was absolutely not aware of. So that's something I believe is a huge takeaway for me. I think, a lot of us have made it so far, or have made it to where we are, and I'm speaking this in this case, I'm speaking about myself, is because the women out there, or the women who have been either behind us or besides us. And I have, Chavi, grown up in a family with I have four sisters. So I've grown up in a family with, obviously I'm the youngest, so a lot of pampering and cajoling, and they've been awesome. They've been awesome. Then I got married and all of that. But I genuinely believe, but for any of this, I don't think I would have been where I am now. Point is not whether I'm successful, or point is not whether I've made a lot of money, or point is not whether I've traveled as widely as Aditya has. The point is, have I reached somewhere? Have I traveled a lot? The answer is yes. I've traveled a lot. I've traveled all over, and that's only because somebody out there has put the anchor and taken care of the ship. So I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop with this. But so for me, I think, yeah, the entitlement tag has to absolutely rip off and being taken away. No longer. It doesn't hold good. It shouldn't. It should never have been there. But it just happened, and that should go away right now as we speak.
Yeah. I also want to tell the people here that Venkatesh is from Dubai, and Aditya is from Australia. So they took out, and when we discussed this, and they said okay, and I mean out of their busy schedule. So Aditya, coming back to you, what does being a man mean to you in terms of the roles and everything? What does it mean? I mean, for women, you have to explain it to everybody. What is being a man?
Sure. It's a harder question for, I think, men to answer. As you just said, it's probably easier for women to answer this question because they're asked that question a lot. In terms of like the society asks them that question, and they themselves, I guess, ask them that question a lot. We really don't. I haven't noticed. I haven't been made to notice that I'm a man. Really, like I just at least most Indian men, I guess, obviously we're generalizing here. We just get up and we get on with our lives. We're not
Absolutely.
conscious that we're men. We're
Absolutely.
just we're just doing whatever we want to, and we're being ourselves. uh I this one thing I say. So I definitely spend more time in India, and I love India. But there's this one thing I tell everyone when they ask me, that I always want to come back to India, and I want to settle back in India. I'm just temporarily here in Australia. Because someone asked me, but why is that? Isn't Australia beautiful? Isn't that like just a nicer country? Why would you want to come back to India? So I tell them that firstly, I'm only saying that I want to come back is probably because I'm not a woman. If I was a woman, I probably wouldn't want to come back. It's a very, very harsh, sad thing to say, but I know all my female Indian friends in Australia, they don't want to go back. And for me, it's absurd. Like, why wouldn't I not want to go back? Because for me, it's just about taking a flight and going back, and there's nothing much changes really. But for a woman, a lot changes when they go back to India, especially Delhi. I think things are a bit better in Bombay and other cities, but in Delhi, it's a drastic shift. So for this short answer, for me, of being a man, I don't know. It's just being myself. It doesn't really. It's not much else to it. Yeah.
And that's an absolutely great point he's made, Aditya. Can I, Chavi?
Yes, yes, please.
Absolutely great point. So, Aditya, are you married? No. Yes.
No, I'm not.
Okay. So,
No.
you lucky guy. Okay. So I'm married, Chavi, and so here it is. For men, nothing changes when we get married. Actually, nothing does. And I realized it when I got married. And obviously, as you grow older, you get mature, and then you realize that for the lady who comes in, or whatever she does, a lot changes. A lot changes from the way she works, from the way she behaves, from the way she's looked up to, the expectations on her change. Obviously, she's been living with her parents all her life, and then she moves out and moves in with somebody whom, even if she just knows, obviously, uh, for lesser than we do. And I'm going to give away my age here, but at the cost of it, there was a time when, at one of the anniversaries, she mentioned to me, and she said, Venki, shit. I said, what happened? And I'm very bad with dates, so I thought I'd messed up something again. She said, I just realized I've lived longer with you than with my dad and mom. And
Wow.
while we laughed about it, and the reality is, that's something to sit back with a coffee and think. Right. And women, I think you should take a bow, and you should pat yourselves on the back, or you should get us to pat you on the back. But that's a huge sacrifice. And what are we talking here? We've done nothing. We've just continued with our lives. We got married, and the next we went. Some of us did, some of us did not go. Went for a honeymoon, and then we came back, and then we continued with our lives.
Yeah, that's very nicely put. And of course, women always. I've also always felt that I need a wife or I need a mother. But that's
Absolutely.
one way of putting us,
Absolutely.
of defining what we are. But as a woman, but I want to come back to the roles. And I mean, you've not this, but Aditya, let's come to the book then. Because when we are talking about all this, if men are thinking like this, then why is it that that happens? What is the fantasy, the imagery? Where is that happening? So Aditya, that book, I want you to discuss that book, that
Yeah.
the Ponistan. What was it? Is it
Mhm.
autobiographical? How did you? I mean, because that is the part of a man also,
Yeah.
of
So
everybody.
sure. So I wrote this book because I'd been thinking of writing a nonfiction book, and I was sort of trying to figure out what subject should I write on. And then I finally decided I should write something that I would want to read myself. And that's why I wrote about pornography's impact in India, because it had a huge impact in my life, pornography. And I know it's had a huge impact in most of my male friends' life, all of my male friends' life, not most. Uh, and I know that I'm 36, so the impact that it's having on generations after me is much more. Yeah, it's just more intense, the impact. So it was pretty intense with me. So I can only imagine how intense it would be for future generations. So I I wrote this book because I grew up. For me, sex education came through pornography, and at one point in my life, in my mid 20s, I was full on addicted to pornography, and I had this very weird moment where I was dating a girl who was very good looking, and everybody around me confirmed that she's good looking, and but I would rather watch pornography and masturbate than I would have sex with her. And when that happened, that moment happened, I was like, oh shit, there is something wrong with me. I need help because this is not normal. So that's when my journey started of getting help. I did not go to a psychiatrist, which I probably should have done. Again, it comes back to why we're having this session, because it's still in my head. It was just a bit weird to go to a psychologist or psychiatrist. It felt like I was, yeah, I was acknowledging that there's something seriously wrong with me. It's like, okay, there's a little bit wrong with me. I don't need to go to a psychiatrist. Like that's extreme. Even though it's not, right? But that's how our brains work. It seems like it's extreme. So I started doing other things. I started meditating. I started exercising. I started reading books about it. Um, Eventually got over the addiction part of it, but I still realized even after the addiction, most of my sexuality was being informed by pornography, and it is being informed by pornography for most men in India, and more so now even women, if not directly then indirectly. Why, I guess what you wanted to ask was, why is that?
Yeah.
I think why that is because for me personally, again, I can speak more for men than for women, but for me personally, I think what happens for us Indian men is that we're definitely super curious about sexuality in our teens, mid-teens, early teens, late teens, and we want to explore, we want to have sex, and we want to find out as much as we can about sex. And the only source we have is by talking to other friends or by watching pornography. And pornography is now much more easily accessible. I don't have to worry about being judged. If I have a weird thing I want to ask a friend, I wouldn't, but I can watch porn. And if I have a weird fantasy about, I don't know, some weird taboo fantasy I have, and I'm uncomfortable talking about it to even a friend, I don't have to now. I can just Google it and watch some sort of a pornographic image about it and just inform myself with that. And that's why watching pornography. That's why most men start watching pornography, because we're curious, and that leads to other things. Yeah.
So, Venkatesh, I would want to ask you also that what role does pornography really play in a man's life? I mean, being very honest about it, because then we will talk about the fantasy part.
I think it acts as a release. It acts as a release to probably pent up emotions. It acts as a release to to something that he is not able to do or say in different forms. Or a lot of times it's and this depends on what age bracket you're really in. And for a lot, it is more curiosity and the excitement of jumping onto a new train when they start off their journey. So I get it depends on, and obviously Aditya is more qualified to speak. He's written a book, but technically, I think it's more about what age you jump onto and then get hooked onto, and are you able to, with a lot of strength, wean yourself away from it, like Aditya has done, and continue leading a very normal, successful life. I guess it's part of everyone's life, but are we? What do we get? I think it's basically release. It's basically looking at uh, what's exciting in there for me. Can I spend some time with just myself, and so on and so forth? Yeah.
Aditya, I just want to understand this because this pornography is something that's a very it's become like a it's become like a necessary part of of growing up, especially men and women, and
Correct.
it is. I will not say
Chavi,
it is
Chavi,
unhealthy. Yeah,
can I just
uh,
stop you?
yeah.
Priyanka, I think there are some people who are still having problems watching the video. I've been getting continuous pings from people, so um, and I send them the link, but they don't seem to have. So, is there a link you want to share with me that I can resend because they're not able to get in? Sorry, Aditya. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
a lot of them actually, a lot of them.
Okay.
So, can they just click on the original link, Chavi?
Yes, yes. I
All
think
right.
they can click on the
I think
original link
so.
and
So when they do that, it says cannot play video, uh, and or it says the video was removed or something like that. So
oh, because we went offline and we came again. So I
maybe
think
that's right.
Priyanka, can you just do that
Yeah,
for us?
yeah.
Thank
So
you.
let's continue while she
Ah,
fixes it. Thanks.
okay.
Sorry.
Aditya, I want to come back to you, Aditya, and because pornography is an integral part, I think, of growing up for many of the boys and men. Because, like
Yeah.
Venkatesh just said, that it's become it's a release or whatever. But tell me,
Yeah.
is it how do we see it? Because there are desires, and how much is violence a part of all of it? Because there are desires, there are fantasies which are normal, I think, for everybody. We all fantasize, we
Yeah.
all have our
Yeah.
own this, but how does what role does pornography play?
Sure. Sure. So I I so violence is a definitely a different topic altogether, but I think what role pornography plays is, again, as probably Venkatesh sir also pointed out, it really depends on what age you start watching it. But I think that's probably an irrelevant question for anyone who's under 35 or even under 30, because they started watching it when they were early teens. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're under 30, you saw pornography before 15. Almost certainly you did. And so what role it starts playing is, again, it starts playing the role of this very important and necessary guide that we're looking for as men, where we want someone to guide us through this is a very tricky journey of sexuality. There's a lot to it. There's so many moving parts to it. Like, what does a girl like? What makes me a good lover? What do I want from a girl? uh, what do I do about this raging need to have sex every second? Do I do something about it? Not do something about it? Um, yeah. Can we all see each other?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we
yeah.
can. We
Okay.
can
Okay.
see
Yeah.
you.
Sure. Okay. Perfect. So it's that is the need for someone to guide us through this tricky journey that every single one of us has. I think for reason that we can discuss more so with men than women, um, that we have this need to look for a guide. But I think women's almost maybe equally have that need as well. So with violence, what happens is, so I'm this 15-year-old boy who started watching pornography because it's there, it's easily available, and that's the only source I have to get informed about sexuality. Or I am a 26 8-year-old married man who's watching pornography, as Venkatesh sir said, as a release. No big deal. Not as a not as an educator of anything, just as a release. In either form, what happens is most may I have some stats in my book about it, but something on upwards of 80% of all mainstream pornography is violent towards women. So no matter who I am, no matter what reason I'm watching it for, I will eventually end up watching a lot of pornography which is violent towards women. And after having, if I'm a 15-year-old watching it, I'm instantly thinking, then that's okay. That's how sex is had. If I'm a 29-year-old man who already has had a lot of sex, if I'm watching it, I'm thinking, ooh, I want to try this. This looks like more fun than whatever I'm doing. Um, and so it sort of starts informing us eventually. So violence in pornography, and most pornography is violent towards women because most pornography is catered to men. And does that mean that men like violence? No, that's not what it means. What it means is that men, just like news, we're all drawn to the negative things more. If we have two pornographic videos, one is these two couples having consensual, loving sex with each other, versus one porn video where the guy is dominating the girl and hitting her and slapping her. A man will naturally get attracted to that more violent form of pornography kick video, not because that's what he inherently wants to do, just because that's how our brains work. Again, that's why Arnab Goswami is more likely to get uh, viewed than someone who's not that loud and angry on TV. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, thank you, because you already said it. I would have said it that pornography is violent towards women. It's catering to a man's fantasy. But I also want to come here and get in fantasy here, because when we discuss the boys' locker room, Venkatesh, even it's where are we missing out? Because everybody has a right to their fantasies. They have a right to their desire. But what happens? And I think somehow, I don't know. I have to ask you: is it because virtual is, in a way, it's virtual, but suddenly it becomes real? And so if I write, or in that, if I have fantasies, if I have violent fantasies, then is it that I'm going to act them out also? Or you know I mean, from your own experience, would you think you would want to act it out? Has that temptation been there? Not violent, but many of these pornographic sites have. Did you ever feel you want to experiment? And also, like sex, it's just sex. There's nothing consensual. It's either sex or it's forced or assault or rape or whatever. But do you think fantasy desires, and there is something that we are losing out there? Aditya, Venkatesh, both of you.
Aditya, you want to go first? I'm just thinking
Aditya,
about.
you want to go first? I think we've lost. Aditya, you want to go first on the importance of fantasy, desire, and this virtual world? Is there some intermingling? And we are getting
No, no,
lost.
let's go first. I can
So,
follow.
so Chavi, technology, and I'm talking about today's age and time. Technology is an absolutely powerful tool. All of us have access to a lot of stuff out there, and I'm not talking about just this topic. I'm saying generally there is a lot of stuff out there. What you do with that stuff that's available to you, how you act on what's available to you, is really what determines. And there's a very thin or a thick line dividing the two. And more often than not, like you rightly said, Chavi, maybe a lot of us are, I wouldn't say on the wrong side, are probably standing on the line and hopping over and coming back. And I think it should probably go back to our education. It should probably go back to our society. I think educators and people who influence and people who have a role to play in bringing up the sharp young intellect and minds. And I can tell you, the younger minds today are much more sharper and more intelligent than we were in our days. I can say that absolutely about myself. But then yeah, so do we what do we include in our syllabus? What should we do? Should we openly? I think a lot of these things happen because it's perceived as a taboo. And typically when something is perceived as a taboo, you want to go after it. It's like when we were in school, and I'm giving an example here. When you were in school or college, in Bombay, you used to have those thela walas who would sell amrut or seb or lemon, and you'd buy them for $1 or $2 or $5, and the guy will give you more, and then he'll put an extra one. But the and one of my friends once, we were buying it, and we bought some bear. I don't know what's the Hindi term in Delhi for bear, but essentially it's something. And we bought a few, and we were happy. And then we came out, and this friend showed me my palm, and he had about two more bears in his hand. So I said, "Where did you get this from?" He said, "Nahi yaar, utha liya thele se." And we were very young, so I said, "Kyun yaar?" He said, "Yaar, tu kha ke dekh, iska maza kuch aur hi hai." So and I'm saying this while I'm making light of it. What's really is, so that's the stolen part, right? That's the stolen part, and that's the discussion. So I think the moment something is forbidden, the something is, do not watch it. The moment something is, while it needs to be there, I'm not saying censorship and restriction should be removed, but all I'm saying is, we have to inculcate the culture of self control, or the culture of what is good and what is bad, viveka as we call it, into the minds of these young kids as they grow up. And it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl or anybody, it doesn't matter. And I think that will probably do a lot of good. This is not going to go away, but the reality is, I think that will do a lot of good in terms of how, like you say, people act out some of these. I mean, I watch a movie and I don't start beating up people. uh, but and that's where it should stop. That is exactly where it should stop for anything, according to me. You leave the movie hall, you've had fun with yourself, you've had fun with a bag of popcorn or with chips or with nachos and with your partner. You leave the hall, that's where it should stop, period. There is no taking it back home, there is no carrying it in the car with you, there is no thinking about it. Well, you can think about it, but there is no action that affects somebody else can ever be accepted, is my frank opinion on it.
Yes, Aditya.
Sure. So great point by Venkatesh sir. But so I think there are two aspects to this. Is one is that the education part that Venkatesh sir just spoke about. That's obviously the most important part out of this. That if we educate them and make them understand the difference between fantasy and fiction and non-fiction, then they'll be able to deal with it better. But with the fantasy aspect of it itself, what happens is, out of the different psychologists and psychiatrists that are interviewed around India, what seems to be happening is that there's two things that seem to happen. One, that obviously people watch um, videos, taboo videos, fantasy videos. So, for instance, some of the most popular porn in India is bhabhi porn. Anything connected to bhabis, and because again, it's a taboo relationship, which makes it that much more exciting. In America, one of the most popular pornographic searches is stepmom and stepsister, and so what's happening is, obviously there's that aspect what sir just spoke about, that it's the fact that it's taboo makes you want to see it. But also what's happening on the other hand is that one I think, again, having spoken to a few psychologists about it, there seems to be a bit of a difference between fantasy in pornography versus fantasy in something like a movie, because that was something what I had asked some of the psychologists as well, that why, so we go and watch a action movie of Salman Khan beat up people, doesn't mean we go out and start beating up people. It doesn't happen. Then why is it a concern that people will watch violent pornography and start imitating it? Because what seems to be happening is that the sexual patterns in our head are just much more rewarding than anything else. So when because we as humans are meant to procreate. That's it. That's like, for our brain, that's the holy grail of our existence. That's why we're born, because we have to procreate. So any sexual activity seems to give us more reward than anything else. It gives us more reward than most other things do in life. So having seen a lot of violent pornography, you are more likely to want to replicate it than watching a violent movie or a violent video game even and replicating that. So there's a there's a technology addiction clinic in Bangalore. It's a brilliant institution, the only technology addiction clinic that we have in India. Um, and the leading psychologist there told me that he's had patients who are addicted to video games. He's had patients who are addicted to weed and stuff. He's dealt with them, and alcohol. We're talking about young people here, and he's had patients who are addicted to pornography, and he's personally found that it's the hardest to uh, get people off porn addiction versus any of the other addictions. He found it easier to get people off video game addiction, even alcohol addiction. He found it terribly hard to get people off porn addiction. Well, his reasoning was it's probably to do with the fact that it's a sexual connection that the brain makes, and it's just more rigid and more rewarding than anything else. And so with what's happening with the porn industry is it's getting all these views. So there are all these people watching it, and sure, people want to watch taboo things, and people want to watch, but when you as a curious person go and just want to watch pornography just for a release, but then what you see is rape videos, and even though they might be played out, you see rape videos, you see people having sex with their moms, their sisters. You might not necessarily have gone there for that, but now that's what you're watching, and that's what you're watching, and that's what, and you do like it because it's, again, it rewards your brain, and it's super taboo, which rewards it more, and then you want to watch it again and again. Doesn't mean you'll go out and start doing that, but it sets these connections which mess up your psychology in a really bad way. There have been many cases, again, all over India. Psychologists are saying lots of cases of couples coming to them where the wives don't want to act out these porn scenarios, and the husband, that's all he wants to do, and they're on the verge of being getting a divorce because of it. So it definitely is an issue.
That is true. And, because as a psychologist again, I was more concerned because you see, if you, I mean, there are fantasies are a defense mechanism also, and they are very necessary. But, as personally, I would never want to, do moral policing on fantasies. But the problem is that acting out. So somewhere I think we need to be clear that they are not necessarily, if somebody has fantasies, you will act out, whether it's Savita Bhabi or it's whatever the taboos and whatever we are talking about. But it is, but then I want to come to another point, is that have we over sexualized everything? Because all relationships, like you said, we are born to procreate in a, that's the bottom line of everything. So have we brought out all relation boils down to sex? And do you feel that there is an overemphasis, whether it's in symbolism, advertising, media, everything, or serials that are coming? Uh,
Yeah, I think for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about it, because again, you just hit the nail in the head. It's advertising. It's everything. It's again, because our brains get hooked on to that instantly, and they notice it instantly. Again, there are two separate channels, one showing something that's not too sexual, and the other channel showing that is sexual. Our brains will automatically want to watch that thing which is more sexual, because that's what our brain gets attracted to. And advertisers are using it, pornography industry is using it, everybody's using it, everybody's exploiting that human need of ours, and for their own benefit. So we've definitely sexualized things way too much. Yeah.
so I want to ask you, Venkatesh, that what do you think what do you think women want? Or what is it that women look for in a man? We'll go with you first, and then I'll just extend it, qualify it. What do you think women look sexually also? A man has many aspects. No, there are many roles besides the entitlement, but all the roles. What do you think a woman is looking for in a man?
I think she's looking for a partner.
Hmm?
I think she's looking for somebody whom she can sit with and chat. I think she's looking for companionship. And men can provide all of that. So yeah, so I think she's um, she believes a man is really, and this is what I believe strongly, and we've lived by that. I think she believes that when she gets married to somebody, or when she has a partner, and I'm talking about life partners here, it's an extension of her personality. Somebody whom she believes can 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 work with her, can partner with her, can co-join with her, and jointly they lead a great life. uh, Obviously, if you ask a girl what she looks for in a man, you'll have answers like John Abraham and Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan and all of that. But when it comes down to reality and brass tacks, I guess women are smarter, and they say, yeah, we want somebody whom we can spend time with. And that's been my opinion. And I don't think it's about women or men. I think it's about the same with men as well.
Yeah.
I think I would want to have somebody whom I can spend time chatting, whom I can spend time talking to, whom I think I can discuss topics freely. That's my personal opinion, and largely I think women understand that. I don't think that differs really, and I'm talking about largely the world at large, right?
Yeah. So,
So my wife probably loves a Salman Khan, but uh, physically and structurally, I don't match him at all. She's lived with me all these years, and so I'm saying this, I'm making a little light of it, but really, Chavi, it's about uh, as you go along, and I'm saying this, as you go along, what you want in your school and college and in your 20s is very, very, very different from what you want when you spend the next 35, 40, 50 years of your
yes.
life. God willing, you live long. And that's the maturity that I think gets into women, that gets into them. And that's when the coin turns.
Right.
That's when the lever switches and they say, yeah, you're good looking, but I still want a partner with whom I can converse. I can have a good time. I can go, who understands my feelings, who understands and the softer side of me.
Right. Aditya,
Yeah.
I would want to ask you, what do you think women women want in a man? But I will also add one thing, that because what Venkatesh just said is that what women look for, but it takes time to come to this understanding. I'm sure it takes time to come and realize that this is what women want. And this. So what I want to ask you is, what do you think a woman wants in a man? And both, because you've written the book, so you have to answer from from an adolescent perspective when somebody is 19 and 20 and 21, and then from, of course, then when you come to this understanding, what you personally feel a woman wants in a man.
Sure. So with the adolescent perspective, I can speak more confidently because when I spoke to psychologists and child psychiatrists, what they said was again, even in their young teens and mid-teens, they're also looking for answers, and they're also exploring their sexuality just like men are. They are also these days, the influence is a lot cultural, and it's a lot indirectly or directly pornography and ads and what the mainstream new movies are telling us. So I think what what mostly we end up wanting, both men and women, is what we're being told we should be wanting. So I I think, as probably Venkatesh sir said, it takes a while to figure out what you as an individual, free from cultural or society biases, what you want. But I think in your teens, you're almost certainly wanting what everybody else around you is wanting, what your closest
Correct.
friends think you
Correct.
should want, and that's it.
True.
But
True.
as you grow up, I guess that's the thing, that's the journey, that you figure out what you truly might want. But even then, I think with Instagram and social media is playing a huge role in all this these days. It's informing our sexuality, it's informing what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we don't want. But yeah, so it would really depend on that individual by the time they're grown up, as to what they've been consuming and what they've figured out about themselves, and accordingly they want or don't want something. I think biologically speaking, we probably, as Sir said, women biologically speaking probably want the Hrithik Roshans, like men
I
want the.
missed him. I missed him, of course.
I see him as that perfect human, like
He's the Greek god.
structurally.
He's the Greek
Yeah,
god.
he's a Greek god.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So biologically, that's what probably they want, but also biologically, what they want, which is probably a little different to men, is what Sir just pointed. They want a companionship. It's a biological need with them, because the brain is telling them when they do procreate and they have a kid, they want a man to be protecting them through it. So they do want companionship biologically. Uh, Seems to be a bit more than men do at a younger age, especially. So yeah.
Good one.
So, there's this quotation that goes, "There is a time in a boy's life when the sweetness is pounded out of him and the tenderness and the ability to show what he feels is gone." Yeah. I just want to ask you, when did this happen to Venkatesh? It's witnessed.
Uh, I'm thinking, did it happen? Um
Were you
so
always, can you, I mean, could you always, because there's a lot of peer pressure and there are many things, and the peer pressure is humongous and amongst everybody at a certain age. And that is, could you even voice or could you be soft at that point in time? I mean, could you express, could you be emotional? Because men are taught certain things and we haven't touched them. So, Aditya, you want to go first on that? Because performance is a very
uh
important part of a man's life.
sure. Could you read out that quote again? Sorry.
Yeah. There is a time in a boy's life when
Hmm.
the sweetness is
Yeah,
pounded out of him and the tenderness
yeah,
and the
yeah,
ability to show what he feels is gone.
yeah.
When did this happen to
Sure.
you?
So what I'm instantly thinking is that, one, that fortunately for me, my parents didn't do that to me. My parents uh, were completely okay with me being whatever I wanted to be, which is actually unusual. Uh, they were unusually understanding parents. So I think your parents have a huge role to play in what this aspect of pounding out. But it happened to me in school, as much as it happens to any boy. I I started hating teachers at a very early age because I had some incidents in my school, which again, it probably doesn't have to do with manhood. It would, but it maybe does. Like for instance, in my fourth standard, what happened was I one day hadn't done my homework, and firstly, for teachers in those days when hitting was okay, were more open to hitting boys than they were open to hitting girls. They would still refrain from hitting girls, but they would kick and slap and punch boys quite freely. We had PT teachers who were slapping us like it's a joke, and some boys took it like it's no big deal, but some boys got quite affected by it. So when I was in fourth grade, I didn't do my homework one day, and my class teacher, she was probably having a bad day now that I think back about it. But what she did was she took me around different standards and got me to stand in front of the class and got everybody to say he's a donkey, just because I hadn't done homework. And that was I remember that day very distinguishedly, because from that day onwards I hated teachers for the rest of my life. And so it wasn't directly pounding out the boy whatever in me, but it was pounding out something in me. I became very averse to performing in public and talking to people in public, talking about things openly. And there was also always an element of, especially as I grew older and older, that that very stereotypical element which I felt around my male friends, was that don't be a pussy, don't be a pussy, and come on, man the fuck up, and uh, you know, boy, I know it's super cliched, but boys don't cry. That was the thing. I could never think about crying in front of my male friends. That would have completely ruined my reputation. I could never think of doing it. And so yeah, all that stuff did happen. But I think teachers and bad teachers did it more for me than anyone else.
Venkatesh,
I've been fortunate, Chavi.
okay.
I've been very, very fortunate. And I'm not saying it for the sake of saying it. I genuinely have been very fortunate.
Yeah.
Um the I was scared of teachers more for not having done my homework than for anything else. I was not the sharpest brain going around in school for sure, not even in my own class. But no, I haven't really, been very fortunate. I had a very probably, if you may probably call it, I've had a very protective environment. I don't know if you call it. At home, it was great because, like I told you, well, a couple of my sisters were married, but then I grew up with practically four sisters and my mother, and they were like mothers to me all the time. And I had a great set of friends, and this was in Bombay. I grew up in Bombay all my life, so I had a great set of friends, and a couple of them would look after me. But uh, no, I don't think I. So although they used to call me a darpok when I was growing up, and that's what I was. I guess I wouldn't take panga with anybody. I wouldn't stand up on the class and break a bulb. I wouldn't throw a chalk on that on not the kind of stuff you see nowadays. No, I wouldn't do any of that. So I was pretty much docile, if for want of a better word. Was pretty much tame, and and you could get along. You could. So if you ask me to do about 10 sit-ups, I would do it. Not that it happened. I remember. I remember one incident where I had moved to Bomb. I'd shifted schools, I think, very very early on, and this school had Marathi. And guess what? I scored a 0 in the first test. And very young, and the teacher asked me to nothing because I scored a 0. I think the lowest after me was 1 or 2. So 0 was bad. So she kind of made me just stand up, and probably look at a wall or something like that for 5-10 minutes. But it didn't bother me. It never. A lot of things, those things never really bothered me. I was heavily into sports, and I was heavily into. I guess that's the other thing, right? I was heavily into extracurricular activities. I represented the school, I represented the class. I spent a lot of time playing with my friends. So I don't think I've been lucky. I've been, but then have I got bullied by stronger guys? Yeah, probably. Have I got whacked by them? No. Have I got shaken up by them? Yeah. But then that's when I would quickly go and I'll keep quiet, and then this couple of friends of mine will realize that, अरे तुझे उसने क्या बोला? So I used to be, I guess I was tall even in those days, so they used to call me Lambu, and they would say, Lambu, to bata usne kya bola? And I would say, no, nothing, guys, relax. So I think I was more the no dadagiri type. So I was more the scared guy who would go to school and do my bit and come back, and I was fine. So again, like I said, uh, maybe my answer would be different if I'd grown up in some other part of the country or some other school. So I've been that way. I've been pretty lucky. Yeah.
Aditya, I want to ask you, what is your idea of an empowered woman? And in that same, yeah,
Wow.
what would you say? Who's an empowered woman for you? And I
Sure.
think if the audience,
So
sorry, if the audience feels,
yeah.
they can also just write what they think is an empowered woman, but we'll go to Aditya now.
Sure. So I feel I honestly feel like the goal here, we keep forgetting it every now and then, but I think most people get it. The goal here is that when you see a human being, you don't judge them as a man or a woman, right? That's the goal. That's what we're striving towards eventually. That it's irrelevant if they've got a vagina or a penis. It's everything else other than that. So I guess empowered woman is someone who's not having who's just being themselves, not making decisions because of their sexuality, or they're doing their thing, whatever it is, and not having to change it or think about their sexuality before doing things. I don't think about my sexuality before doing things because I'm empowered. I'm a man. I think I would wish the same for a woman that they don't have to think about it.
So, and as an empowered man, you feel the same definition applies, right?
Correct. Again, I think personally, I am an empowered man because I I don't have to think about my sexuality
Fantastic.
mostly. I think I haven't been, yeah, I'm not caught up in it. I'm not making decisions because of it. Yeah.
And and Venkatesh, what does success mean to you? What does
Wow.
success mean to you?
I
And
should have taken the list of questions from you beforehand. Uh, and success, as in, can you elaborate a little more so I can?
just success, whatever it may be in this
Success,
life.
success means being, for me right now, Chavi, at this stage in life,
Yes.
success means maybe 10 years back it would have been different. But at this stage in life, living a good life. And when I say a good life, I mean a good relationship, um, a job in hand. There is no scarcity of what we need. Being able to call up friends and speak to them, get invited to talk on a show like this, um, uh, pick up a few awards here and there when they feel I've done some good work. Being able to do things at my own, being able to wake up on a Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's what I do actually. On a Friday, I actually wake up at about 1 or 2. So that's success for me. You sure you can throw in money as well, because money does make life easy in a lot of cases. But yeah, but that's success for me, and that's always been the case. Maybe if I was younger, if you had asked me, I would have said probably having a crore, 1 crore in the bank account. But no, as you grow older, no. So for me, success really is about I'm able to do what I want, and I'm also the most important thing I think is, Chavi, I have engaged myself very actively in a lot of social empowerment, or making a difference to a lot of communities across. And I think that has made a huge difference to me. Whether it means, and these are people from economically challenged sections, and whether it's not always money, but it's spending time with them, talking to them, mentoring them, even money as well. I think that's what I believe. We are lucky, or we are fortunate to be where we are, at least some of us, and that authority should be utilized to help others, to reach out to others, and not use it for your own benefit. So for me, that's success, and I'm living it today.
Right. Very nice. Aditya, what is success to you?
Three more
I,
books.
I,
3 more books.
No, I'm
oh,
kidding.
that the sound of waking up at 1 on Friday sounds like success to me. I don't see how I don't see how you can define success any better than that. But yeah, I think that's definitely one thing. But yeah, success. I've felt. I think Venkatesh, sir, his last point is what I resonate with the most as well. Especially after having written this book, and a lot of men have gotten in touch with me since I've written it. Almost every week or so, I get
Very
a
nice.
message from a young boy saying that, sir, I read this book and it's really helping
Very
me,
nice.
or I have a lot of questions about porn addiction or porn or whatever. So that's it just feels great. So I think we all here watching this on Facebook and stuff, we're all exceptionally privileged. You realize this more when you live outside India, because
Correct.
it becomes like a blind spot when you're in India, but when you're outside,
Right.
you realize how privileged we Indians are, and especially with what's happening in India right now.
Correct.
We are people walking for thousands of kilometers just to get home. Yeah, success cannot be anything other than being able to help them. That has to be it.
Beautiful.
Aditya, you just said that people ask you about how to for de-addiction and how to get after reading
Yeah,
your book. So what do you how do you I mean what is your suggestion and how do you help out?
sure. So I usually just tell them everything that worked for me. I tell them to read the book if they want professional advice, because that's what I've written the book for. But if someone asks me personally, I can tell them more in detail what worked for me, and maybe that works for them too. So what worked for me was, um, one, a meditation worked for me a lot. Now it's meditation, a different sort. There are a million different kinds of meditation. Some meditation might work better for others. I've done quite a few different kinds to see which one works for me. There's this thing that Art of Living does. It's called Sudarshan Kriya. That really worked for me. It's very effective. I've gone done Vipassana courses, their 10-day meditation retreats. They really, really helped me declutter my mind, get over the addiction. Exercise really helped me, just going to the gym every day, just having a more like a better moving body. And yeah, so these couple of these things, being talking to people more openly worked for me as well. uh, when you talk to people who are really close to you openly about these things that you're really scared that they'll judge you for, it's almost always displaced fear. The people who care for you will not judge you for it. And it helps. What it does is it's embarrassing. When so I wrote this book, and it talks about how I was addicted to porn, and I was going my get my parents to read it, and I honestly didn't want them to read it, because somewhere inside me I was feeling a bit nervous. I don't want them to know that their son was addicted to pornography. That's lame. But it's not. It's okay. We're all flawed in our own ways, and to accept our flaws is the first way to get over them. So yeah, I tell them to talk about it with close friends and people they can trust, and with girlfriends. Definitely girlfriends and wives and partners. You should definitely talk to them about it, because they're being impacted by it every day. You might not be feeling like having. You might not want to have sex, and they might be feeling you're not wanting to have sex because there's something wrong with them. But it's probably in these scenarios, it's usually your porn addiction which is making you not want to have sex. So you need to tell them so they can be part of the healing process. If that sounds very but that's what it is.
So, Aditya, another question I have to ask you, because this is something that everybody needs to talk openly also. So, what would you say
Yeah,
is that, because both of you, even Venkatesh touched on that the reason for porn addiction has been that because there is no alternative available for men and women to really learn about,
yeah,
their sexuality, because everything is so taboo. Masturbation is taboo, everything. So, what do you
yeah.
suggest? What do you suggest can be done? Because besides, everybody will
Sure.
not go to a counselor or a, what do you
Yeah.
think can be?
Correct. So this is it. This is it. This is the most important topic, and this is why I wrote that book. That what can we do about it, and what we can do about it is one, what we're doing about it. We talk about sexuality more, but the most important thing is sex education. Now, sex education is a very broad term. A lot can come under that umbrella, but sex, the most important thing that like the most urgent thing in connected to this topic is that we need to start implementing sex education in our schools like right away. We have the biggest youth population in the world, and none of them have been educated about sexuality. None of them can openly talk about sexuality. And how can then we be surprised when something like Boys Locker Room happen? For me, when something like Boys Locker Room happens, and when people are surprised, I just feel like laughing, because how are you surprised by it? What we men and girls both, but we can't talk about anyone. We can't talk to anyone about our sexuality, and then we do stupid things. Obviously we do stupid things because we haven't spoken to anyone about it. We haven't spoken to any adult about it. We haven't spoken to anyone who knows anything about it. We've spoken to our friends, and then we end up doing stupid things, which is like, isn't that expected? It would be weird if we weren't doing things like the boys locker room. That would be weird. The fact we're doing it is completely normal in a society which has no sex education. So one thing is sex education in schools, but that will take a lot of time. The governments will have to do a lot of things which they don't seem to be too keen on doing, especially the current government. But what we can do instantly from today is talk about it openly at homes. So parents can start talking open. There is no other way. I spoke to so many psychologists around India and around the world. Everyone had only one answer for what we need to do to have a better sexually and how we educate our younger generation about sexuality, and have them act more positively, more responsibility. And everyone said the same thing, that parents need to start openly talking about sexuality. They need to become friends more than parents. Now a big argument against that is that, our parents weren't like our friends, and we grew up just fine. Firstly, parenting needs to change because the world has changed. Parenting can't keep being the same while the world completely changes around us. So the world has changed. Your 14-year-old kid can now access pornography, hardcore pornography, on his phone. If he or she doesn't have a phone, they can access it through their friend's phone, and that's how they'll understand what sexuality is, and that will be damaging to them and their future sexual relationships. So start talking about sexuality with your 14-year-old boys, girls, even younger. Psychologists told me they should start discussing about things like sexuality as young as 6 7, and talk about it openly, and that's it. That's the only way.
Yeah, Venkatesh, you are a father of two sons. And so, how have you discussed it?
Thank you for reminding me about it. No, Chavi, it's time. And so our household has typically been a free for all. We are at times our household resembles a stand-up act. So we are as explicit as we can get, and it's been like this. I'm pretty much comfortable with colorful language even at home, and I get pulled up by my wife very often, and then she realized one fine day that the guys used it, and then she took off and on them, and by the time I think they were 13 or something, and they said, "Mom, what is the big deal?" Thank God they didn't tell them Dad also uses it, so I escaped that day. But they said, "What's the big deal, Mom? Relax, chill." So so it's been a free, and I think and those days I used to get, obviously I used to get shouted by my sisters, and I used to get shouted by some elders around the house saying, "What is this? You're not controlling the kids. You are letting them." So and my point was, even at that point of time, and I believe in it even today. My point was, what's the uh, we have open conversations. My boys and I, we have open conversation. It's definitely not taboo. I mean, listen, and like Aditya beautifully said it, you can take away a phone from a kid. You can't, and my kids probably grew up in the I wouldn't say pre-email, but probably grew up in the very early days of the technology revolution. They're now grown up, but so you can take away a phone, but you can't take away his access or his ability to access the content that's out there. I mean, all it needs is a phone line with a connection. We have in our house, Chavi, we have always openly talked about sexuality. My kids surely knew that they didn't come because mom and dad went behind a tree and kissed each other. They know that. I promise you that, and they knew this very very early. So we spoke about it. Did we speak about it? Knowing fully well that 20 years down the road, Chavi will be calling me on a show on Conversationist, and no, not at all. We spoke about it because it was okay to talk about it. It was never a taboo, although in family circles and other things it was a taboo, even the place we're growing up. But as a thing, it was not. We would talk very very openly, and I think that's something that I would encourage. And I see, so when a kid uses a bad word today, I see parents react very adversely to it, and I'm saying relax, because you can react adversely, but the kid is going to stop using it tomorrow in front of you. That's what is going to happen. He's not going to stop using the word.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about ages where they are formative, right? I'm not talking about 5 6 7. I'm talking about the formative 10 12 13.
Yeah.
He's going to use it outside, and he'll say, "यार ठीक है, मैं घर पे यूज नहीं करता हूँ, मम्मी भड़क जाती है." But I'm saying, people should encourage that. And Aditya rightly said, I think a lot of parents are, I wouldn't say are not ready to be parents, are probably don't know how to handle it themselves, because they've probably grown up in era where bad words were bad, and all of us watch. So I keep telling my friend, all of us watch stand-up shows today, and stand-up shows, you will agree with me, Chavi and Aditya, they are as explicit as they can get, right, on any channel. So we watch them on our phone, and then we turn around and we look at our kid and say, "Why are you using this? You're not supposed to use this. Is a good household." I mean, using a bad word doesn't make a household bad. It's just an expression. Now, obviously, there is a decorum around it. Obviously, there is a place, there is a time, and all of that. But they know it, and my kids have grown up knowing that, because that was not. And it's not about so sexuality was openly discussed, and we realized that a woman has as rightful a place in society as a man does. As kids were growing up, and we always realized that, and like he said, we really didn't differentiate a man from a woman.
Right,
So you talk about empowered woman, and I'm saying, for me, empowerment is about, doesn't matter about a man or a woman. So I think kids should be brought up with that. So we spoke about sexuality, we spoke about, and we discussed the all of the different types of sexuality. We discussed that very openly. It was not about a hidden conversations, or it was not about a conversation that to stop when the mother walks in. No, it was a very, very open conversation. He didn't have to come and ask me, Dad, can I talk to you about this? He spoke about it.
right,
They didn't have to go to their room and talk about it. They didn't
right.
have to, we don't switch off. If there is a show going on about sexuality or about something, we don't switch it off when the kids walk in. And it's been like that always.
All right. So I want to ask one question while we are talking about this, and both of you seem very comfortable. So if I have to say, okay, Aditya is a very masculine person, are you comfortable with that, Aditya?
No, I'm not at all.
I'm not.
I would like to be, but I'm not. I,
All right.
I would like to be in the sense, like, I'm joking about it, but no, I don't see myself as a very masculine person at all, because I I think I do a lot of things. I have a lot of characteristics. I have a lot of habits which are not masculine at all in any way. So yeah, I don't think I'm very masculine. But I don't think on the other hand, I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with being very masculine either. Uh, I'm just naturally not very masculine. But I have cousins, I have friends who are very masculine, and that doesn't necessarily make them bad people.
Exactly.
You can be masculine and still be making right choices and be doing the right things. Yeah.
Yeah. Venkatesh. I mean,
I don't know what being masculine means. So I really don't know, Chavi. So if you mean 6 feet tall and 42 or 45 inches chest and 17 inches biceps, then no, I'm not masculine. But if it means standing up for something going wrong, not putting your head down when something disastrous is happening, that for me is masculinity. I mean,
all right.
people talk of feminism all the time, and I'm saying, if somebody stands up for so a woman can be masculine as well. So if somebody stands up for a right, if somebody stands up for something that's going wrong, I think that is being masculine. Masculine is not about chati choda karke, no, not at all. So for me, that's masculinity.
All right. Priyanka, we have two questions for the audience. I'm going to be throwing some cliched which we've been hearing about men, Aditya, to you and to Venkatesh, and I just want your responses. Of course, the first one is men will be men, boys will be boys. I want to know what is this men thing. Aditya, you'll go first. It's a fast forward kind of thing. Aditya, so men will be men.
Sure.
What is this men thingy? What is this men thing that we are talking about? A boy thing.
Sh- Yeah. It's very tricky. It's not that black and white. It's very nuanced, if you if I can use that word.
Of course,
It's
please.
so there are so there definitely are those cultural things that we attach to men, right? That there is that men will be men in terms of whatever men have culturally been known
Give me an
to do a
example,
lot.
please.
For
Where
the
you are
example,
a
like
man.
two men check out a good-looking woman passing by. That's considered a men will be men thing, right?
Okay.
Um, and honestly, I do it too.
Okay.
I do check out a good-looking woman when she's passing by. Uh, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't stop and
Right.
stare. I
Venkatesh.
don't. But yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Venkatesh, sir,
No,
go
no,
on.
sorry. I thought
You
it was.
finish, Aditya. Finish.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Aditya, finish because
So
your
so
video just
I
stopped.
yeah so it's I just so there are things that are considered very men will be men thing, which I also do. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just stuff we do, is biological things we do, and it's okay. But there are things that are completely not okay, and we have been doing, and we need to stop doing it. Like if there's a very good looking girl that walks by, I might look and appreciate how good looking she is, but I cannot look at her and whistle and start staring at her and start walking behind her, which also men have been doing, but that's not cool anymore. And not cool anymore in the sense that we should not be doing anymore. We know better now. So yeah, it's a bit nuanced, but yeah.
Yeah, because actually, the reason for this discussion and on masculinity was when the when that Snapchat incident of the boys' locker room happened, it was something that it is very painful because it's an experimental age, and you can't put young, boys or girls in juvenile.
Yeah,
It was very disturbing
yeah.
because we all know that how much we experiment, and the second thing is we wanted to start talks about masculinity. So Venkatesh, tell me, what does men will be men mean to you?
Men are
I,
idiots. So I think
okay,
that's what it means.
okay.
Uh,
So men are
yeah, men can't multitask.
okay.
Um,
That's it.
men can look at a thing directly and and not look at it, not see it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Uh, Men get lost. Men are bad at directions, and I'm all these apply to me beautifully.
Yeah.
Men are, and it applies to a lot of my friends, by the way.
Okay.
Men do get lost. Men are bad at reading maps.
Okay. So I
Yeah,
have some
so
of them. So let me just come to the next. Priyanka, can you just put it for our audience also? What's on a man's mind? Can you just show the and let's get the audience also here. So
Chavi, you should have called a woman on this show if you want to know what's on a man's mind.
we'll call the women. This is about men. So I mean, it's said that men have only three things. When I wanted to do this show, most people told me, "What will you get? The show will get over in say 10 minutes." Because men have only three things on their mind. Women and so Aditya, you go first. You tell me what's on a man's mind. Is it true woman
What's
power, food and wine? I've added power, but that's okay.
Sure. So I think what's in a man's mind. I think again it changes with age. When I was younger, I think that the cliched about men thinking about sex every 10 seconds or so was completely true for me. Uh,
Correct.
but it's becoming less and less true now, which is a bit worrying too. I'm not sure what's
Mhm.
happening to me, but I just don't think about sex as much now. I think about other things, and but I think one thing which sort of I see a lot in men is they're definitely they seem to be very driven by wanting to do something. I don't know if it's ego or what, but yeah, I guess it's a lot of things, depends.
Yeah. Venkatesh, what would you say?
Chavi, I
What's a
think one of the things that occupies a man's mind is a lot of insecurity. Um, Man is always insecure about a lot of things, and that probably goes back to what the way our society has been, the way from the times when a man used to go hunting and catch an animal and bring it and feed his family. But it's really about so that insecurity, I think, plays a big part on his mind. It does through my mind too. You could tell me, what are you insecure about? What is the big deal? Yeah, doesn't matter. But I think that's something that is playing on the mind. I guess so. If I were to draw a man's mind picture today, I would probably, and again, this obviously depends on age as well. I would probably put insecurity as a block in there, which probably takes up about 20-25%. Two, yeah, we think about women. Yeah, sure we do, and that's no different from women thinking about men. But yeah, but we do think about women. I think sports and things moving fast is something that occupies a man's mind a lot. I actually haven't come across a guy who says he doesn't like cars or motorbikes. I have actually haven't, and I met a lot of them across age groups, and that's really surprising. So in girls, you do come across girls who say they don't like makeup, or they don't like lipstick, or they don't like movies. I've never come across a guy who says I don't like cars or a bike, and that's really surprising, Chavi. And I've spoken to tens of
yes,
thousands of them. So that's the other thing I would put. I think
yes,
third thing is what also occupies a man's mind is, barring the very obvious ones, is uh, wanting to, again, that's where his insecurity, wanting to protect his family or his kith and kin immediately. I think that occupies a lot on his mind. Somewhere along the way, I think it's again been maybe because we live in a patriarchal society. Somewhere along the way, it has been built that, and this is true even if the woman in the house also works. It's always been that I need to take care of the family, and I need to look after them. They are depending on me, and they could not be depending on you. Your wife could have a very good job and a very good salary, but that and I believe that that's also there maybe because probably somewhere that gives him a false feeling of importance.
Right.
And I'm saying maybe it's ego, maybe it's I'm not a psychologist as you are, Chavi, you are an expert, but I feel that's where so I would draw these 2-3 things if I could. Again, this is very different from a traditional textbook approach, but since you asked me, I'm being open candid with you.
Yeah. I mean, it has, because tomorrow we have two psychologists, one relationship expert, and we're going to analyze, and we're going to do a little bit of psychoanalysis of men and many more cliches. But one thing, the first cliche I've broken is that we've had a conversation for almost an hour and a half, and so
Wow.
men can talk, and it's not.
So
And
I must tell you this. I think we get big. My father-in-law says this, and we get making fun of. So we used to live in Bangalore. We were living, and we used to live close by. So he used to drop in home, and he one day came home and he said, and this is after many years of marriage, so it's too late to do anything. So he one day walked in and he said, "Listen," and he asked his daughter. He said, "Tell me, you guys speak so much. Who in your house listens?" So I'm
yeah.
remembering that because you said this. So so we both of us have spoken a lot. So I guess Aditya has something similar to me, I guess. So
It is, and I hope you can read the comments, because people see, they are saying, the Madhuri is saying she nailed it. Men have sex, sports, and toys, and the toys on their
oh, she
toys is
said
your
that. Oh,
cars, and
lovely.
yeah. And people are saying carry on the conversation. So I'm still going to throw some more cliches. Aditya, it's said if women could read a men's mind, every second man would get slapped. I mean, what is this? From where does this come?
I
What
I
is on a
think
man's
this comes
mind?
from I think this comes from not understanding how a human brain works. Because if we could read anyone's mind, everyone would be getting slapped all the time. We're all and more than slapped. I think most of us will be thrown into a psychiatric
Yeah.
hospital, because most of our minds are completely out of control. We're thinking about
Agree.
rubbish shit most of the time. So it's not unfair to pick on men. Uh,
Okay.
Separately, we all need um, some help in understanding how we can channelize our thoughts, because our thoughts run all over the place, and hence it leads to some random negative, bad, shitty thoughts. But it's not, yeah, it's just
You know,
it's more of a,
more of a
yeah, it's not the problem. It's more of like a symptom of a
uh,
problem, which is out of control thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. When I was doing Google search, I just put men, and the first thing came is barber shop and but when you put women, there are so many others which I will not discuss right now here. But tell me, what is this? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Aditya, we'll go to you first and then to Venkatesh again.
Okay, sure. So I haven't read the book. I've heard really good things about it, though. I wanted to read it. Uh, I have some friends who are not into astrology and stuff at all, and they still like that book. So I I do think there are biological differences between men and women, which we seem to ignore in trying to bring women, empower women. We sometimes forget about them, forget about the fact that there are some inherent differences between men and women, and it's okay. Those differences aren't bad. They just are what they are. We do happen to have more testosterone, which does lead to a bit more aggressive outlook towards life. It's proven. These are facts. These are not these are not just random opinions. These are facts that we have more testosterone. We're more prone to building muscle than an average. These are all obviously generalities. We're more there's certain things that we're more prone to wanting to spread our sperm. These biological things which are different from men and women, and other than that, obviously there's this one layer, and then there's this huge uh, layers of cultural shit which can be gotten rid of. But there are at the base of it, there are some basic differences between men and women biologically, which we should not ignore. We should understand them and then work with them.
So, Venkatesh, men are from Mars and women are from this. One is logical, the other is emotional. Let me just explain it. Just, but I know you've read the book, so men are from.
Great book, absolutely great book, and I completely agree with him. There are things that a woman can do, a girl can do much better, and there are no two ways about it at all. um, uh, Simple things such as attention to detail, simple things such as cleanliness. Um, you you would probably, and I'm talking about daily examples, right? I mean, John has done a great book. You would probably find, if there are 4 women living in a hostel room or 4 girls, you would very rarely find one towel or an undergarment left outside. But if there are 4 boys living, you would find everything. Maybe one of the undergarments has been used as a doormat as well. You will find everything that there. I have had, so Chavi, just to let you know, I have had, and my God, I can actually write a book with my experiences. I have had wet towels shoved into my cupboard by guess who? So and that's because I forgot on the bed. And history repeats itself. The boys are doing the same, and guess what? They get exactly the same treatment. So my wife is very consistent that way. But truly, I mean, there is no way a girl can do this. So guys will remain guys. While there are this 1 out of 10 friends whom I have who actually iron the undergarments and who make sure the towel is dried out nicely and all of that. But they should not be on our side. They should be on the other side. I always tell them that. But most of us are that way, and that I think that's a clear differentiating factor. We are largely unhygienic. We are largely incoherent. We don't know sometimes what we are doing, and that's normal. We and I'm not even going down the other bits of, I don't know whether men snore more than women and all of that. I don't, but genuinely, it's very different. I think it's largely also because, like Aditya said, it's also the way you are brought up. I mean, today I know, for example, I have friends who've got daughters, and girls like cars, girls like guns. That's because when your kids were growing up, nobody bought a pink shoe for my son. Nobody bought a pink shirt for my son. It was always said, if it is a boy, it's a blue balloon. If it is a girl, it's a pink balloon. And as we speak in 21st century, it continues. So a pink color has connotation to, of course, now some rich guys are buying pink sports car and all of that. But the reality is that continues even today. So why do we say, so I think John has done a great job with the book. I genuinely believe he absolutely nailed it. And will that change? I don't know. And for the want of some sanity in society, I hope it doesn't change.
Absolutely.
But no, I think it's a great thing. It's absolutely, yeah, we are different.
Okay. I had planned to ask you, who gossips more, Aditya, men or women?
Who gossips more? Oh, that's
Good.
Yeah. It's you're putting me in a spot here because everybody knows the answer. Everybody. You're still asking me the question, but it's like you're testing me.
Yeah.
But
Come on, Chavi.
I think gossip good, but I don't know if any of you have read this book by Naval Harari called Sapiens. I think he has a brilliant book. I think gossip itself, I think he mentions it in that book, or was it in some other book? I don't remember. Gossip has some genuine it's need in a society. It's called, what do you call it? It's an
Survival.
evolutionary thing. Exactly, evolutionary need. So in whatever my experience has been on this planet, women definitely seem to be doing it way better and way more, which is probably an advantage, to tell you the truth. Men need to catch up on it. We need to get our gossip game better, because they're
Yeah,
probably They probably are
Yeah,
ahead of
yeah,
us with
Yeah,
this.
yeah, there's a
yeah.
response coming in. Madhuri is saying, "No way, men do gossip more," and there are people agreeing. Anuradha has said, Anuradha Venki said that I agree with Madhuri. Men gossip more.
No, Chavi. No, but and I'm going to add to, if Aditya permits, I'm going to add to, if you go back about 40, 50, 60 years, in the villages even today, if you look at one of those lanes where there are houses on both sides, and you see them in movies, you will not find women sitting there and gossiping. Actually, there will be guys, and you see them in regional movies, guys sitting there with a
That's so
newspaper
true.
and actually gossiping.
Yeah.
So that
That's so true.
absolutely, in those days, I think somewhere along the way, people like Aditya and me stopped gossiping.
No, that's not true.
No, no.
Corporates have so much of gossip.
But no, but it's very different. Yeah, so the water cooler conversations, you're right.
Yes,
But it's
the locker
very
room.
different. It's very different gossip. So if I call Aditya, for example, now we know each other. If I call him tomorrow, I promise you, I will not have too much to say to him, or he will not have too much to say to me. And I'll tell you where men gossip a lot. Pubs, uh,
Yeah.
discourse. You can't hear each other, but men will keep talking. But offices they
Yeah,
do.
I
But
think
really,
I think a good point to add here is we gossip about useless things. I think women gossip
yeah,
more about things
exactly.
that matter.
Yeah,
We gossip about if Ronaldo hit a better goal yesterday,
correct.
which is such a useless thing to gossip about. But women would talk about stuff which matter, which like social hierarchy gossip. Uh,
And there are times when, yeah, I agree with him, and there are times when we are discussing, none of us have the money across the table, but we are discussing about whether we should be driving a red Ferrari or a green Ferrari, and none of us have money to even buy a drink that day. That's how men are. You would not find women engaging. Women will be very, very, very proactive, very, very, as a matter of fact. And I haven't been to any women gossip conversations. But I guess, Chavi, that's why women have kitty parties and men don't.
So I see. I'm neutral here. I'm not
No,
absolutely.
I'm just saying it.
I I've left. I'm empowered here. I don't have a gender. I don't.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's.
But do you agree, Chavi? Do you agree? Or I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to turn it around. Do you agree with what Aditya says?
I agree with what Aditya says. I agree
Awesome.
with what you say. I agree with everybody here.
No,
I
no, you
don't.
can't do
It's
that.
perspective.
Just because you own the show, you can't do it.
No, as a psychologist, I cannot disagree. I will never say, even for this, I will say in the imagination, you should be free. I will always stand by that. This whole thing started as if
Yeah,
we are going to silence one half of the
correct,
gender, then it's going to be very
correct.
serious for us. You can't silence one thing and start saying, okay, this is
Yeah,
not good to think about, this is not good.
yeah,
But we
yeah.
should know
Agree.
where to.
I,
And and for me,
I
I mean, I'm going to throw this with the audience, but uh, the last question, I don't know, I've not had enough. It seems I can ask so many more questions, but we are way past whatever time. And I mean, the audience here is also, they are giving in so many suggestions and everything. And I think both of you can read the comments, no, Aditya? Is it visible
Yes,
or
I can.
do I?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
yeah, I can.
visible, but not been paying too much attention. But yeah, it is
All
visible.
right.
Some nice comments. Yeah.
All right. So, on one last thing I will take from both of you, as a man, and as a man, what would you want to? What would be your statement to everybody? Aditya, you will go first.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So as a man, I guess like a statement to everybody and a statement to myself. I think it's mostly a statement to myself. Is that something I remind myself every day? Is that um, it's to stop acting out cultural um, culturally imposed ideas of what I should be doing, what I have to be doing. Like I should be getting married, I should be having kids, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be owning a big house, I should, like whatever culture has taught me. I tell myself as a man, as a human, to free myself from them and to do whatever it is that I truly want to do. And to all men, especially Indian men, if I have to give them a message, it would be that we really, one, in terms of pornography, I would advise everybody to live a more sexually healthy life. Talk about sex more often. Men don't talk about sexuality with each other like we were talking about gossip. We should
Yeah.
discuss it with friends more openly. We should discuss about things that we're scared of sexually. We should talk about it with other male friends. We should talk about it with female friends. We should talk about it with parents, adults, young people. Talk about sexuality more. It doesn't make you less of a man when you talk about when you discuss things you're scared of. That's something that I was definitely taught as a man, to not show that I'm scared. And it's
Yeah.
okay to be scared. It's completely okay to be scared. It's, in fact, if anything, it's more manly to be scared and admit
True.
it. And it's
True.
it's more human to be scared and admit it. That would be my only message. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Venki, your
Uh,
thing to be.
Stop
What should
acting
we?
a man. Stop
Okay.
stop thinking of yourself as a man. I guess all of us down somewhere need to believe, and more as men, is stop being entitled. Stop feeling the sense of entitlement. And you're not entitled for anything. You are as much entitled as every other person, or every other sex there is out there. So stop being entitled. Eliminate the age old, century old tradition of patriarchy that you carry around with you. Demolish it. Don't carry it around with you. Too much of baggage carried around for too long. Time to shed it. Time to lose weight. This is the age of style of losing weight. Do it. Get rid of a few kilos there.
Right.
uh, yeah, and when you converse with somebody, when you have a drink with somebody, when you're sitting on your balcony and chatting with somebody, I think I would say communicate more, have more effective conversation. Talk about topics that are topics. Don't get personal, and don't generalize as in, oh yaar, people say, oh yaar wo to ladki hai. Stop saying that, for heaven's sake. Stop saying that. Because for every wo to ladki hai, there is a are yaar wo to ladka hai. We may not talk about it there, so we should stop saying that. There is nobody masculine. I think that word, unless you want to define masculinity like I said, that is the definition of masculinity. We are all we have a very large, considering that, and if I take the entitlement bit a little bit further, if we do want to consider ourselves entitled, then I think we should do things that can empower the society. I think we should do things that can make people believe we genuinely live in a better society. And I have done my bit, and here's my tick in the box. And if we can't tick the box, and if I can't cross out the I's and the T's, then I have no right to be a man, if you may call it.
Right.
That's what I would say, Chavi. Seriously.
Right. So with that, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Yes, conversation is for us. It is we respect, and thank you. This is a sacred space. Almost when anybody shares their thoughts, it becomes very, very sacred. And Aditya,
Yes.
thank you so much. And I'm very honored. Venkatesh, thank you
Pleasure.
for being here and sharing your thoughts. And
Thank you.
It was
and
a complete pleasure. Thanks for having me on. That was a great
Aditya,
pleasure, and
aw- aw-
I'll be watching tomorrow and day after.
thanks,
oh,
Aditya.
thank you
Awesome,
so
awesome chatting with you. Chavi, thank you very much.
Yes,
yeah, thank
we will stay in touch. Thank
We
you.
will, we will. Thank
you.
you very much.
Yes,
Thank you,
Aditya. Thank
Priyanka, for getting us on. Thank you.
yeah.
Yes, thanks,
And
Priyanka. Thank you.
and before we end, I just want to summarize what has been said here. And one thing, the takeaway for everybody has to be: masculinity, being masculine is not is acceptable. And what we are doing as a society is, agar hum toxic masculinity kar karke, agar hum if we take away something from the men, then what is happening as because I've been just reading, and hum kya kar rahe hain? Masculinity means being assertive. It means strength. It means taking decisions. It means having courage to face situations. That is masculinity, and we cannot take it away from people. And agar hum masculinity le lenge, then for men we are leaving them with no option, because even counseling jo hai, everything, we've not trained them to be. It's a part. Masculinity, femininity are what we wear on our bodies. It's our clothes, and I think we need to be comfortable in that. And that is the only thing I want to leave this with. Tomorrow we have two psychologists on board, and we will be discussing more on the psychodynamics and what goes on in a man's mind. But masculinity, I want to leave this. Masculinity is not toxic. Masculinity is acceptable, and it's okay to be masculine. It's okay to be a man. And with that, thank you once again to Aditya and
Thank you.
Venkatesh, thank you
Thank
for being here. And thank you to all of you. Please send us your responses on what's on a man's mind. And we have one more thing. What is your idol of this? Priyanka, if you can just show the creative, and you can you can message it to us and you can put it in the chat. But we would love to have your responses here.